Oof.
All right, I think we are live in Facebook, right? Are we good, Robert, in Facebook?
You are good in Facebook and on Zoom, my friend.
All right, Mortgage Coach community, welcome to the Tuesday takeover. I got called by our good friend Dave Savage to take over his top producer Tuesday interview, and it's kind of a funny story. He called me the other day and he asked if I could do this, and then he asked who I had in mind, and I said, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to pick my brain for a guest, and then you're going to swipe them, and you're going to come in and you're going to interview him. And he goes, no. He goes, I can't make it. He goes, I want you to run point. He goes, who do you think? And I said, the first person that came to mind is one of my favorite loan officers that I know, colleagues that I know. I would call Lisa a friend at this point, but more so a mentor. I met Lisa about 6 years ago. It was one of the first core summits that I'd ever gone to. Mm-hmm. And I started listening to top producer interviews through the core, and Lisa was on that. And then I got to listen to her as a coach. I've never had Lisa as a coach, but last year I did. You substituted for Stuart Sadler. And you were like, why aren't you working with more realtors? Like, you called me out on my own game, and I absolutely loved that. But when it comes to working with realtors, with people that I know that have just done it for such a long time at a high level, I think you're a black belt at just running a great mortgage practice. I think this would just be a huge gift to the Mortgage Coach community. So I want you all, wherever you're at across the country, across the world, to give a warm welcome to my friend, the best mortgage loan officer in Minnesota, Lisa Wells.
Well, geez, Sam, thanks. I am excited to be on here, honored. I watch this group all the time secretly. I called Dan the other day and I was like, oh my God, these people are so smart. I got to get smarter on how I do things. And so this is an incredible community, and it's really fun for me to be on it and a part of it. So,
well, I know you're going to bring a ton of value today. So let's kind of just jump right into it. We are in, just for perspective, if you're watching this in review, or if you're watching it down the road, we're at the very end of August of 2022. And I think when you and I talked the other day, I had talked to Dave about a month ago, and he had interviewed, oh my gosh, and I'm forgetting her, Nicole Ruth,
yes,
out of Colorado, I believe.
Yep.
And she was up year over year. She's trending to be up. And then I was talking to Denise Donahue, and she was trending up, and Dave was going to have her on a follow-up call. And I said, I'm in a coaching program where I'm involved with some of the coaches are the best of the best across the country. And then the students like me are some of the best across the country, and across the board throughout the core. Most loan mortgage professionals are down this year. And these are high achievers. These are high performers. And then Dave's talking with Nicole, and she's trending to be up. And I talked to Denise, and she's trending to be up. And I said, there's something that these two people are doing that's different than one of the top coaching programs that I'm a part of. And I want to find out really what it is. And so I was on that call with Dave and Nicole. And then I was also on the call with Josh Metal and Denise the other day. And I think that's where you and I got talking about this. But why these two people are up is no surprise. If you go, I would encourage you, and we'll have Robert or Dave put the links to those interviews down in the description section or in the comments. But it's activity. They're highly visible, and they're highly active with realtors. So there's no secret. So this call is going to piggyback on the last two calls that Dave's done that I've been a part of with Nicole Ruth and then with Denise Donahue. So let's just jump right into that. I heard you do a coaching call. I think it was at the November, I have it right here, at the November 21 summit, where I think the title of the call was like call, visit,
mail call, visit your way to more realtor relationships.
Mail call, visit your way to more realtors. Yes. So, and I know you totally have your presentation for today and everything, so I'm going to let you run with it. I do have a few questions that I'll add along the way, but really right now, the topic of today's interview is how to acquire and deepen relationships with realtors. It's August of 2022. If you're a mortgage professional right now, you are going after realtor referral business. That's purchase business. So Lisa, why don't you start off with just kind of an intro to today, and then we'll jump right into a few questions.
Yeah. So it's interesting you bring up those two interviews, both of which I watched because I'm a silent stalker but I'm also just a knowledge and educational junkie because I just feel like that is what is required at this point of the game. I am not up. I looked at numbers this morning and I'm down about 30%. So we closed about 154 million last year, and we should be on track for about 105 this year. But when I'm listening to those girls and I'm like, God, how are they up and why? But one thing I think is really key is I think both of them got belly to belly a lot faster after COVID. And I think that there are a lot of people that got a little bit COVID lazy, me included, and relied too much on Zoom and relied too much on the phone and too much on video. And there's just nothing that can replace that belly to belly connection. So I think like overall, man, those two videos or those two interviews really changed my mentality. So I'm not doing any more of my lunch and learns via Zoom. They're all going to be in person. You're going to get in your car, you're going to show up. And I just think that adds a lot more to just the connection and the relationship. So if I rewind, so I've been in this business 22 years. It is all that I've ever done. And I joined the core in 2010. So I was a student at the core for 2 years, and then I have been a coach for the last 10 years. And one of the things that I will tell everyone who is listening to this that will give you some hope if you are newer in this business is when I joined the core, I had 0 real estate agents, 0. So if that gives you any hope, last year in 2021, we had referrals from 71 different real estate partners. So I'm sure your trajectory will be a lot faster than mine, but I did start the core training with 0 realtors for 2 years. The only homework I was ever assigned was cold calling realtors. And it was like the hardest, most challenging thing because I came from Wells Fargo, and Wells Fargo, I did a lot of business and I just took care of people and it was easy. Everyone just showed up and I took care of them. But now to go out and hunt for business and get them to trust you and get them to take like, you know, the clients that they've been nurturing for months and put them into my hands were like super scary for them and for me. So that has kind of started my journey on realtors, knowing that they were an absolute necessity to surviving and thriving in this business.
Okay, so first coaching nugget of the day. I'm going to put you on the spot with this. You had to cold call your way to business. Your coach has just said, hey, your only assignment.
It gets to do
nothing but forget the greatness tracker, forget all these other things. You have a form that has whatever, 100 realtors on it, and you need to meet more realtors.
Yep.
For a younger loan officer right now that maybe got in the business over the last 3 to 5 years, that's known nothing different than low interest rates. You go to the grocery store, you go to a kid's soccer game, and somebody wants to buy a house or refinance, and oh my God, use me. It was really, really easy over the last few years. So that person now is actually having to add value to realtors and call on realtors.
Yes.
Or you got a seasoned person like myself that just needs to tune up their game. And I'm back to cold calling realtors. I relied on listing agents just due to my volume, listing agents and real estate agent referrals from other realtors over the last 5 to 6 years. I'm back to cold calling. Tune me up, tune up our listeners. If you need to cold call a realtor, how does that call look? And how does that mindset, because I know a big part of it's mindset too. How does all of that look? Walk us through, the process that you go through when you are reaching out and cold calling a realtor.
So at this point, I'll be honest, I don't cold call a ton because I've got years of buyer's agents and listing agents that are pseudo warm. But when I did do really cold, and here's what I would tell you, nowadays, I would find a way to make them warm. Yep. Meaning it's your trajectory of getting a meeting or getting them to call you back or getting them to even pay any attention to you takes so much longer. If it's super chilly, you've got a million ways to warm it up. So if I was going to do cold calls today, Any clients that closed with me in the last year, I would ask them who their buyer's agent was, and on a scale of 1 to 10, what did they like about them? And what was the one thing that made them work with that person versus anyone else? And then I would ask them permission to use their name when I called them. And that's how I would warm it up.
Yeah.
I would do that if I was doing cold calls. I would also do that with any business people that I personally did business with. So if I get my hair done, hey, do you have a realtor? Who did you use? Did you really like them? Could I use your name to get an intro? I just feel like there's so many ways to make them warmer. And out of obligation, a lot of times those agents, because that was a past client that said, oh, you should talk to this person. A lot of times they will talk with you out of obligation. Now, when I did all the 2 years of cold calling, all I did was look at who were the top kind of 10, 15, 20 buyers agents in every office, just called them. I had no rhythm. I was a bad dancer on the dance floor. It just was a numbers game.
Yeah.
But what I will tell you, and we'll get into this one deepening, some of those 3, 4, 5 of those agents that I cold called way back when in 2010, I still work with those agents today. So just because of how I got them doesn't mean that you can't have a deep relationship or really good connection. So right now, if you are cold calling people, or if you're even calling agents, period, you better say something that matters and is different. So I will never say like, oh my gosh, I give incredible service. Giving incredible service is like walking into, Haagen-Dazs and ordering vanilla. Like it's just, ugh, right?
Yeah.
So service, and define service. To me, my bar of service is way up here. So your level of service may not even make the cut. So right now, for me, everything is about how do I help them? And if you're newer, you better find a way to help them. So for me, I have 3 things that I kind of say. Number 1 is if I'm calling an agent that I don't work with, or that's really chilly, maybe they were a listing agent years ago, I would say something like, hey, I know the market's a little bit crazy right now. Would it be a benefit to you in your business if we could close a deal in 10 to 14 days? And if not, we actually pay a $10,000 guarantee on that to you or your sellers. Would that be a benefit? And the reason that I ask it that way is, number 1, I don't know if it's a benefit.
Yep.
So for some agents, they might say, yeah, that would definitely get me more deals. Yeah, that would definitely move the needle. Okay, I'm listening. Some agents would say, nope, I don't have any buyers that would want to move that fast. I have slow moving people, etc. So I say, okay, the old me, newer, I would have said, okay, well, thanks so much. If there's anything you ever need, let me know. Bye. And walk out the door.
Yeah.
Now I reclose them again, because just because that hook didn't work, I just missed the mark a little bit. So then I go to another hook, and maybe another hook is like, hey, do you have any clients right now that maybe are just sitting on the sidelines because home prices went up too much and interest rates went up, and they're just on the tippy edge of qualifying, and they're not quite there? And then I would listen to them. Yes, no, okay, great. I have an opportunity where I think I could definitely move those people from sitting on the fence to buying. I would love to talk to you about it and try and reset the appointment. And again, it's just another hook, because I'm kind of just feeling what's going to catch their attention so that I can get 15 minutes with them. Or if I said, if that hook didn't work, they're like, nope, I don't have any buyers. They've all bought. We're good. My last one might be, hey, if I could show you a way to get 3 more closings next year, or sometimes monetary really helps agents too. So
Yes.
like if their commission was 10 grand, hey, if I could help you make 30 more grand next year, would you give me 15 minutes? Yeah. How can you do it? Well, let's meet and I'll show you. but I have probably 5 different ways that I could help them get more business, from working their database to doing annual reviews to showing them how HomeBot works, to lots of different things that agents don't necessarily do, that how to ask for CCRs, that easily we could do 3 more deals with them next year. My whole point in any of those hooks is, number one, have one. You know, sitting down and chatting about business, everyone's saying it. We have incredible service, we close on time. That's the barrier to entry right now. So you've got to have something that makes you stand out and be unique and memorable, because that's the biggest game that we've got to play in this business, is to stay memorable to people.
Yeah. I had a coaching call yesterday with a loan officer at our company, and he just moved, he's wanting to call realtors, and he goes, "What would you say?" And I said, "It doesn't matter what I would say, because when you're cold calling realtors or you're calling realtors, you have to express your unique value proposition." Mine is unique to me. Lisa, yours is unique. You just heard 3 of Lisa's, or 3 of her 5. And so I would say these are, first of all, you just got gold. You got 3 scripts right now, 3 basically cold call hooks to call real estate agents or business people to earn business, to earn that 15-minute appointment, to add your value. But none of that works if, one, you don't know what your unique value proposition, what value do you bring as a loan officer? So I will stop right now and say, go back and watch other top producer interviews, or continue listening to this as well, so that you can identify how to be of value. So when Lisa starts talking about deepening relationships, or you heard her talk about her last close, which is, if I could show you a way to make $30,000 more next year, would it be worth sitting down with me for 15 minutes? Well, you're sitting here listening going, well, how's Lisa going to help someone make more business? That's her unique value proposition. 1, she's a coach. 2, she's been doing this for 20 years. 3, she's a top producer in mortgage. If you're a top producer in mortgage, you can help coach top producers or producers in real estate. And so managing your past client list, your database, leveraging HomeBot, leveraging MortgageCoach, doing annual reviews. You mentioned CCRs, which is current client referrals. Are you asking for referrals during and through the transaction? So stuff like this, when you're coaching real estate agents, yes, it's work, but Lisa has the ability to help agents see 3 additional closings or $30,000 more in income the next year. So write this down, get crystal clear on your unique value proposition. So I'll give you an example. When I was talking with Matt yesterday, a loan officer, he goes, well, how do I identify that? And I said, well, tell me a little about you. And he goes, I said, what'd you do before mortgage? And he goes, well, I pitched professionally for the Florida Marlins. And I'm like, cool. I said, what else? And he goes, then I was I worked on Wall Street for 15 years as a broker. And I'm like, dude, there's your unique value proposition. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Realtor, if I could show you how to make some money, some extra money this year, would it be worth sitting down with me for 15 minutes? I have a skill set that not one other loan officer in my marketplace has. I spent 15 years on Wall Street in the trenches, and I pitched 4 years with the Florida Marlins. I know how to compete and win. Yeah. There's your unique value proposition. Run with it. Matt, you can close any realtor now. And so get crystal clear on your unique value proposition. And then number 2, the second takeaway that I took from you is you got to have, you called it a hook. You've got to have that initial hook. And I loved the verbiage that you said, would it be of benefit to you if? Would it be a benefit to you if? That's so disarming.
Yeah.
And plus, they're telling you yes or no, like before you even go into your spiel, and then piss them off even more because you cold called. Yep. They say no, then you're moving on to number 2. So yeah. I think those were 2 huge takeaways. I wanted to interrupt you there, but go ahead, keep going, because you're dropping some bombs.
I mean, yeah. And I think so right now, just, the realtors, you've got to say something that matters, that impacts them. And so a lot of times too, the reason I say and words do matter, the reason I say, would it be a benefit? Would it help you? Because what I don't ever want is to start giving them medicine when I don't even know any of their symptoms or diagnose them. Recruiters do that to me all the time. I've got this greatest program. It's amazing, and I'm like, I've never done one of those deals my whole life. So that's, I always use those words. Would this help you? Is that a challenge for you? Is this a frustration in your business? So I think that kind of helps, and not giving up with one hook didn't work if a second hook did. I always have three, because usually one of them are going to work and give you the 15 minutes. And that's all you're looking for is 15 minutes. And in that appointment, then everything is about, you know, how is your business? What challenges do you see? What challenges do you currently have? It's all about listening and nothing about diagnosing. I really want to understand, and I'm sure some of you guys have been to these meetings with realtors who are like, everything's perfect in my business. Everything goes well. I love my lender. They're perfect. They do everything well. And I simply ask them, okay, great. Time is not a renewable energy. Why am I here? There's a reason. So let's get to the reason. And they'll usually say then, oh, well, something happened here, or my clients are not liking, or they're not going with this person because of this or that or whatever. Now we're getting down to it. A lot of times you've got to ask why a few times in order to really find out, because we all have a shield and no one wants to be sold. And so a lot of times just asking why and really figuring out. And sometimes if they can't give me an answer, I'll be like, okay, what keeps you up at night?
Yep.
And stop talking.
Yeah.
Because if someone asked me that, I could rattle off 6 things that keep me up at night right now. But that's where you're getting to the heart of the challenge and the heart of what you can help them with, or the hole you can plug. That makes sense?
I love that. I love that. So there's another really, really great. So understanding objections too, and understanding to be able to ask a tougher question. I love the word why. I ask why all the time. And it's not to be rude. It's I genuinely care. Why is that important to you? Or why do you say that? Tell me what you mean by saying that. What does that mean? And so I think that's super, super important. You have to understand these meetings too, once you do get the meeting. So it starts with the call. The call is for a 15-minute discovery meeting that's all about them. And then in this meeting, you're asking questions to learn more about their business. What keeps you up at night? I love that one. I always ask, what's one thing in your business right now that gets you excited, but you haven't been able to roll it out or implement it, whether it be money, whether it be technology? What's one thing that you would love to deploy in your business right now to get you excited thinking about it, but you haven't?
Yeah.
All this, the reason why I love that is
that question.
It's tech. It's always video. It's always social media. It's always something like that, right?
Yeah.
And I have solutions for that. So I'm lobbing that softball so I can crush it out of the park for myself, but not there. I don't jump out of my seat and be like, I got a media company. I do all of this. I can do this. I can help. I listen. I let them say that. And then I ask them, well, why? Why is that so important to you? Well, I don't have an internet presence, or, oh, my competitor is blowing it up on Instagram and I want to compete. Cool. That's a pain point. And if you can solve for that, you've worked your way in.
Yes.
Cool. All right. So I've got, okay, tactical. We just had big time tactics. All right. So this is the how-to.
Yeah.
What do you do list wise? All right. So I gotta identify who to call. So if a loan officer's listening, how do I go about putting together this list? And then how do I follow up on that list? Because let's say they don't pick up on the first call, or let's say they're like, oh, I'm good. I have a lender, and you're not really good at objections. So you kind of let that go. How do you build the list, and how do you follow up with that?
The follow-up is the most important part. One thing, if I could rewind, erase, start over, it would be the consistent connection and follow-up, because I'm a high I personality. So we are like, we love people. We have a million ideas. This many get off the ground and this many actually get to the finish line, right? So that's a problem for a lot of us. So for me at this point, every Monday, I have almost 6 hours of my day is spent doing calls. Now, what I will tell you is that I've left too many voicemails, or I'm just not getting calls back. You can't keep doing the same thing. That's the definition of insanity, correct? So I will switch it up. I will text them. I will shoot them a quick video like, hey, I've left you a couple messages. Haven't heard back from you in a while. I'm worried. I hope everything is, going well with you. Or let's get together. It's been way too long. But you always have to switch it up. But on Mondays, I'm really contacting a good chunk of the agents that I work with. And on Mondays, on Sundays, I typically think through for the week, what am I going to be talking about? And I literally think on Sunday, what do agents need to know from me this week?
Yep.
Maybe it's that interest rates from August to the end of August are moving up because the Fed's talking, or inflation is moving, or whatever it is. Or I've got a killer, 2-1 buy down program, or a killer 10-year ARM, or we need to really review leads right now because no lead can be left behind. And we got to make sure we've got a lid on all of them. So every call that I make is either around what does that person need to know from me today? It's around, hey, let's review leads. Let's make sure we've got a lid on all of these. Or it's around, hey, this is a really cool program. I love it. Do you think you have any buyers that this could work for? Program, or maybe something I'm doing for a lunch and learn or something like that. So really for me, Mondays is all about calls. I do a lunch and learn once a month. Without fail, it's probably been at least a year where it's been the second Wednesday of every single month. I do a video every Wednesday. And it's just kind of a recap of the market. What happened this week? What moved it? What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give them some talking points so that when clients ask them questions, they have really good answers without having to do hours of research. So a couple of talking points go in my weekly videos on Fridays. I do an e-newsletter every month. And that talks a little bit about, like, I have a personal, like, where I'm talking about maybe something I'm working on, something I'm challenged with. For us, like, I wrote one, probably the one that had the most feedback. I wrote a little excerpt about when George Floyd was murdered here in Minneapolis, and how our dinner table conversations were because my husband's Black, my children are, biracial. My husband was also a Minneapolis police officer for 25 years. So for us, it was a very different conversation, knowing all of those elements. And I wrote about that in my monthly newsletter, and it got tons of response and tons of connection. But the reason that I do some of those things and kind of mix it up with doing calls, sending out an e-newsletter, doing a weekly video, we mail once a quarter. I make sure I see most of my agents minimally once a quarter, most of them at least monthly. The reason I do that is because, number one, they respond to all different mediums. So you have to give them all different mediums. Social is a whole different medium, and that is something where we got to do a lot of work for sure, but it's an important medium. It is not fly by night. Dan, you and I talked the other day, I think it's going to be a major pillar of business. So we've got to figure it out. But the reason I do that is, like, there's so many different mediums to connect with agents, and you never know what is going to connect you to them. It could be the lunch and learn I'm doing. It could be the article that I wrote about, personal struggle with that, family stuff. It could be, hey, I'm doing an educational piece on this is what you guys should be saying to your buyers right now about the market. It's all different, which means everyone's different, which means I've got to give it to them different. Does that make sense?
Love it.
The
Yeah.
value is different.
So a couple of questions in the comments. Number one, is your newsletter, is that mail, actual print mail, or is that an e-newsletter?
It is an e-newsletter.
Okay.
And then once a quarter, we'll send it out via snail mail.
Cool. To your realtors and your past clients, or is this, we're just talking to the realtors?
So I actually do an e-newsletter once a month to realtors. I do it once a month to VIPs, which is kind of like my business referrals. I do it once a month to my pre-approved clients, and I do it once a month to my past clients. It's same kind of look, but it's just got some different tweaks. because the audience is a little different.
Yep. I love that. I
Mhm.
love that. So that's big. I'm going to recap the 1, 2, 3, the 6 things that you just talked about in a second. Deborah was asking, going back to when you're making those cold calls, making them warm. There's a couple of comments that said, "Oh, I love this idea about making them warm." So there's different ways to make a cold call a warm call. We could have a total separate call on that. But for right now, Deborah, our social media guru, was asking, are you using social media at all to warm that up? Like liking them, stalking them, friend requesting them, DMing them, stuff like that.
Absolutely. So I'm glad you brought this up, and we are definitely not social media gurus by any stretch of the means, but we'll get there, baby steps. But yes, all of our realtors are Facebook friended. I actually have a private Facebook group for all of the realtors that we work with. Any new ones that I really like and enjoy, they'll all go into a private Facebook group, and then we'll put things in there like, hey, this was a great social post, or this is a brand new program. Who needs it? Here's a great graph that I saw, because I really want to try to get them with good information right now to talk about with their clients. So yes, and social, I will watch, like, there are sometimes agents where I'm like, like I've messaged them and just said, I feel like with what you post, like you and I are kindred spirits. I feel like we are the same humans. We need to meet. So I've done that like 3 times, and all of them have said yes, and we've ended up working together. So I really should do it more, but I don't, so yes, I've done that. It absolutely works.
It works. That's great. All right. So we're about halfway through today's call. We could totally end the call right now with these 6 bullet points. So I want to recap what Lisa just said. So relative to her strategy now. So we went tactical. Now we're kind of taking a step back and looking at 30,000 foot view down. This is what she said she does. So Mondays, she dedicates 6 hours on Mondays to call realtors. So you guys, that's how she stays consistent. That's how I stay consistent in calling real estate agents. It's Mondays. My team does not book an appointment before 4 p.m. on Mondays for me, period. Okay. So Mondays, we are calling realtors. Mondays, we're putting together the e-newsletter. Mondays, we're planning our newsletter with our assistant, our executive assistant. Mondays are for realtors. All right. The number 2 thing she said, she does a lunch and learn on, did you say the 3rd Wednesday of every single month?
Yeah, 2nd Wednesday of every single month.
Lunch and learn the 2nd Wednesday of every single month. That's huge. Non-negotiable. It's on the books. It's consistent. So you're starting to see a trend, consistency here. Number 3, a video of the week. So this goes back to a coach of mine, a buddy of mine. I know he's a friend of yours too, Stuart Sadler. He coached me on this thing called a go-to conversation. So on, like you do on Sundays, you're like, all right, what am I going to talk about on Mondays? That's your go-to conversation. It's a loan program. It's an event. It's a breaking news, the Fed, stuff like that. It's a go-to conversation. So a video every single week. Number 4, a newsletter, an e-newsletter once a month, and an actual written mailed newsletter once a quarter. All right. So there's 2 right there. And then she also said you see them every 6 to 8 weeks for a break bread. So you're physically, I'm grabbing lunch with you. I'm grabbing coffee with you. I'm going to see you once every 6 to 8 weeks. So there's number 6. And then number 7, private Facebook group for realtors. I know Denise does this. I know a handful of other mortgage professionals do this. You post in it, only adding value. It's not pictures of your kids necessarily. It's, well, unless I have a kid like yours who's dunking balls, reverse Michael Jordan dunks, and you might have to show a glamour shot. But this is business. It's, hey, Redfin just announced this, or hey, did you see the CNBC article that just came out yesterday that said Fannie Mae is predicting mortgage rates in the 4s in 2023? This is huge for buyers that are thinking that they're going to wait it out. So, guys, there's 7 tactics right there that you can deploy to stay consistent with going after realtors. So you've made your list. You can get your list through the title company. Make your list. You can go on Zillow or Redfin, or just find a real estate office and call the doggone roster. It depends on how desperate you are, but get your list. Okay. You create your list. You call them on Mondays, identify your unique value proposition, call them on Mondays, set the meeting. once you set the meeting, you've got to bring value. So here's how Lisa brings value, these 7 steps right here. So we're over halfway through now. You've delivered so much value so far, Lisa. I don't know how you can actually even add more value, but I know you will. Let's talk about, and I know this probably played into the deepening part of it, but did we miss anything on the deepening, the relationship side of this?
Well, the deepening, I think, is once you kind of break that barrier of trust and you start getting business, that's really where you've got to deepen. Because what I have found is if I didn't have a good relationship, the business fizzled.
Yeah.
As much as we stayed connected or as much as we did this, we didn't have a good relationship and connection where we talked about other things other than business, it sometimes fizzled. And don't get me wrong, I'm a very let's get to it. Let's get to the bullet points. Let's move on. And so I'm not a chatterbox about that kind of stuff, but I still have to talk to them about other things. So when I think about deepening, one thing that we've incorporated in the last couple of years is we do an all about you form on all of our agents. And what that all about you form is just like fun intel about them. Like if you are going to a celebratory dinner, where are you going to go? What restaurant? When you are running around on doing showings on a Saturday afternoon and you need a caffeine fix, where do you go? Caribou or Starbucks? What are you doing on Sundays? Are you watching football in the fall? Are you waiting up for hockey? What are you doing? What's your favorite sports? What are teams? So it's that kind of little intel and data that then we use to start really paying more attention. So like when it's their birthday, we'll look at that all about you form and be like, oh my gosh, here's their favorite restaurant. Let's get them, a gift certificate to there. Or, we talk about books and podcasts. Who's your favorite author? Oh my gosh, this book just came out, or this, they're a self-help junkie or whatever it is. Pay attention to those details. When they've got kids going off to college for the first time. I mean, as a mom, my daughter will be going next year. I like crying this year, just anticipation of next year. But those realtors that are going through that and like they're kicking, sending their kids off for the first year of school, just doing a really cool card and a little something that says, hey, I'm thinking about you. I know this is a tough time. You've done everything right. Those are the things that deepen.
Yeah.
Those are the things, because we all have a life outside of business. And if we only pay attention to the business life, then we don't have a full relationship that can go years and years and years and years. Like I said, a bunch of 5 of those agents that I cold called in 2010, I still work with them to this day.
Yeah.
So that takes a lot of connection and past clients and work and evolution, because I'm way different. They're different. So I think those things are the things that we really have to pay attention to if we're going to be in good relationship with these agents.
That's so big, Lisa. All right. A great question from Michelle in the chat. How do you deploy that all about you form? How do you send that out to them, and how do you get that filled out?
Just what I told you. Conversation. Hey, if you are running around showing homes on a weekend, you need a caffeine fix, where do you go?
I love it.
Or it's just a conversation.
Yep.
Sometimes I have sent it to them and I said, hey, we have lost it after COVID. I sent out a bunch of them and said, look, I've gotten COVID lazy. I forgot we're in the relationship business. Fill this out so I can really work better on our relationship and staying connected and knowing what makes you tick.
Yeah.
So it just depends the relationship. If I'm, old school, or if I've been with them for a while. Guys, I haven't had an all about you form in years. I'm sure things have changed. Fill it out, send it back. But otherwise, ask them the questions and ask them where they think, like when you go and you've had a long weekend and you finally close that transaction that has caused you 19 gray hairs, and you go and you sit down at a bar, do you order a cocktail or a beer?
Mm-hmm.
I order a beer. Great. What kind of beer? Are you like domestic, import? What's your favorite? Like you can just ask questions and then either write or think, remember, whatever. But that's how I deploy it without being too.
I love that. All right. So Michelle, when Lisa is making those Monday calls too, and this is what I've done. I will have the all about you form out in front of me or up on my CRM. And I'm not going to go through it and drill them. That's not the purpose of the call, but maybe I'll say, hey, I'll ask that question that like Lisa just said, or I'll say, hey, I'm just curious. I think I saw a picture of you on social media. You have pets, right? What are the names of your dogs? Stuff like this, or kids. And then over time, it doesn't take you too many Monday calls. Now you're building rapport, and now you have an all about you form that's filled out. The other thing that I will do with listing agents and then with buyer's agents is I will, not necessarily with listing agents, but I'll follow up with this on how it relates to listing agents. But with buyer's agents, at the end of a transaction, I will let the buyer's agent know that I have an all about you form filled out on the customer, and I'll send that over to them. And so that's really big. Buyer's agents are like, oh my God, this is great. There's everything here that I need. And then that tees up an opportunity to talk about, hey, how do you cater to your past clients? Do you manage your database? There are other ways. Another way that I got real estate agents to fill out an all about you form is I taught a lunch and learn on taking care of your database. And I taught the all about you form, and I had them all fill it out while they were there at the lunch and learn. So there's ways you
of one, fill it out. Yeah. Perfect.
And then real estate agents love that because hey, instead of a cheesy cutting board, for example, as a gift, they can see that these people really, they don't like wine. And so if they don't like wine, maybe they won't like the cheese board or the cheese set. So you can cater to a different type of a gift. But Michelle, that's a really great question. Number 2, I got another question for you from the chat. What are your favorite lunch and learn topics? You do one a month. So what are like 3 or 4 of your top lunch and learn topics right now?
Oh my gosh. I mean, we've done a gazillion. We've done, state of the market, what programs are going to get your clients to move off the fence right now. What to expect with, financing and credit. Is it going to get tighter? Is it going to loosen up? Credit standards, how to fix credit, biggest misconceptions in mortgage lending, do's and don'ts with certain programs. Yeah, I mean, if you want to ask me, I probably have 10.
Some of these are great too, because you can add MortgageCoach and use the MortgageCoach to talk about a 2-1 or a permanent buy down strategy. Stuff like that, as well as some of the financial topics. The one that I'm getting ready to host. So the topic isn't MortgageCoach technology specific, but what I'm going to do at the very beginning, almost like a commercial for me as a mortgage guy, but I'm going to use this CNBC article that I just saw that basically states that Fannie Mae is predicting mortgage rates to drop in 2023 to the low to mid 4s. So I'm going to use MortgageCoach to go, all right, friends that bought in 2021, they paid $180,000 over list price at 3.25%. Friends that bought in 2022 at ask price, but the rate was 5.75. All right, refinance 2023. Who got the better deal on the house? The person that bought in 2022. So it's just stuff like that. And then using that technology to show realtors, and this is how I present loan options. So MortgageCoach users, there's ways to implement MortgageCoach to show real estate agents that you're a different type of lender. You're not just a fee worksheet lender. You are showing value here. And real estate agents in the state of social media right now, that is totally that MortgageCoach report is Instagram worthy, Facebook worthy. And if you're on TikTok and all those newer type apps, definitely social media worthy. So those are some tips there using MortgageCoach. And those are some tips at Lunch and Learns. I bring in videographers to talk about how to amplify your message using video. My Lunch and Learn that is in 2 weeks, I'm teaching people how to use Zoom. So we're kind of through that Zoom era, but every time I do a Zoom call with a real estate agent, there's so many things. The video's off, the audio is off, there's so many things. So I'm going to teach you how to use Zoom, how to stand out professionally on Zoom moving forward. So just little things like that. And I've used Rene Rodriguez and a couple of his colleagues to kind of improve my Zoom presence, if you will. So I hope that helps with answering some Lunch and Learn questions. All right, we got about 10 minutes left. Lisa, why don't you take it home? Lock this thing down.
I wanted to share just a couple other quick tactical things that we do for kind of deepening and staying power of the relationship with the realtor, because I think it's that continuous value add So we mentioned kind of all the other things. Obviously, we do Tuesday updates. So every single week we're updating agents. That is massive for them. One thing that we do too, when we're doing those updates to our clients, is we'll always ask, because one thing is most agents don't have a big team, to do this. And so we'll always ask when we're doing our Tuesday updates to the clients, hey, are there any reasons that you need to talk to Kristen this week? Are there any things that are lingering? Any questions about that? Follow up on that chimney inspection or work that needed to be done. And sometimes the clients will say, no, I think we're all up to date with her. We're feeling good. Or yeah, I meant to call her. I had a question about when the work was going to be done on X. So I'll say, great, I will let her know what your question is. I will also let her know when is a good time to reach you back with that answer. And they'll say, oh my gosh, anytime tomorrow after 3 would be great. Perfect. I'll try to see if she can give you a call back then with the answer. Because then when I call Kristen, the realtor, I'm going to say, hey, Kristen, everything's great on this client. However, they have a question on this. And if you could give them a call back tomorrow after 3 with whatever the answer is, that'd be amazing. So I did a couple of things there. Number one, I weaved the agent in because if they're not connecting with the clients on a weekly basis, if I weave her name in, they're going to feel like I don't need to talk to her. I'm all good. If they do want to talk to her, they will call her. What happens a lot of the time? Phone tag forever, which is super frustrating. So I ask, what's your question? When's a good time to reach you back after this time or whatever? And I will say, I will try to get her to call you back. Regardless, she'll find the answer and get in touch with you. But then I'm telling her, here's what they want to know. I'm saving her time, because if that person calls, she's going to pick up, she's going to not know the answer. She's going to have to go find the answer, and then she's going to have to call them back. I'm saying, here's what they want to know. Here's a good time to reach them back. It's 1 call versus 3. Make sense? So I think that is very helpful to do things. And then for us, we do moving boxes, when the clients are in the middle of a move with packing tape and, kids' books and things like that. We always co-brand the realtor with that as well. And then I will do a 3-day prior to closing call with the client to say, are you all set? Are there any last minute questions? And then I will say, how did Kristen do? She was amazing. We loved working with her. Here's what I will tell you. She's not probably going to ask you for business or referrals, because that's just sometimes not how she's wired. But the only way to really show her how incredible she was and how grateful you are is to send her the next person that is renting and should have a conversation, that is thinking about moving up and should be having a conversation. That's how the best way you can show your gratitude.
That is so gold. And there's no better way to support a realtor than to give them a referral, right? And you are correct. Most real estate agents they'll put it on a business card, they'll put it on their website and their email signature, but they're not proactively asking for referrals, current client referrals. So I love that idea. And I want you to, if you're listening, I mean, I've been coached by, Lisa, and I've been in the same group that Lisa's been coached by for years. So I pay attention to the little things that are different than other loan officers and other coaches. What Lisa just said and did, I want you to hear this, because this is different than any other coach that I've ever heard. When you're teeing up a referral, did you hear what Lisa said? She didn't just say, hey, because I just learned something, because I do this. Hey, would you do me a favor? I know that John is super humble and he's probably never going to ask you for a referral. But one of the best ways to show John that he did a great job was to send someone that to him. That's how I would say it. An amateur would say it. Did you hear how Lisa said it? Lisa said, the next time you think of someone that's looking to buy their first home like you, what Lisa's now just done is she's planted a seed, and that person's in their head, in their brain. Look at the emotions that I'm feeling right now. I'm buying my first home. I'm stoked. Lisa and Craig helped me do this. I'm on cloud 9. So yeah, the next time I hear of someone that would want to experience this, I'm going to think of Lisa and Craig. So I thought that was genius. Or if they're buying their dream house, their move up house, or refinancing, whether you pulled cash out on the refinance or lowered their rate or dropped their term, stuff like that. So what Lisa said there was so important. That's a pro, like ninja tactic that you specifically state what you helped them do that they're super grateful for. So that was my big takeaway there. The other question, there's a question in the chat right now. Love the idea on the moving boxes and co-branding that. Is there a company that you use to order the boxes and the tape and the supplies through?
So I can tell you what's in the moving box. We designed the box ourselves because it's custom to us. So we just went to a box company and said, hey, this is what we want. They did it. And then we order them. And I think they might be like $5 or $6. And then everything else we order on Amazon. It's packing tape, it's markers, it's ponytail holders, it's a couple of garbage bags, it's cleaning wipes. It's super simple stuff. And we just throw it in a box and send it out. And then the agents, we all have kind of their logos, and then inside we put their logo sticker and our logo sticker.
I love that. Okay. And you're mailing that, you're actually like shipping them the moving boxes and all of this versus delivering it
to the client. Yes.
to the client. Okay.
Yep.
Love that.
And the shipping is like $7.95. So all in, the box might be $20 or $21. It's probably the number one thing that we get comments on.
I love that. Okay. I know you're going to get questions on this after this call because that's genius. I think that's great. I've heard of that. One last question, then I'll let you kind of close this out in the last 5 minutes. You mentioned Tuesday status calls. I think that's genius. I love the dialogue, the scripting when you're talking to the borrower. So you're calling the borrower first. Are there any questions you have for Kristen, the agent, that I can relay back? So I'm sure you're calling the buyer's agent next. The third call you're making on Tuesdays is most likely to the listing agent. So what does that listing agent update call look like? Do you leverage that to get listing agent appointments and meetings with those real estate agents?
I usually don't do that. I usually don't leverage that until the call right before closing.
Okay.
So when we get a contract in from a client, I always call the listing agent to let them know what to expect from us.
Okay.
I'm a control freak, so I don't like people calling me and asking me questions, especially if I'm going to push the info out to them. The Tuesday updates and some of the things that we do is all a time management tool for us, so that we're not getting a gazillion calls every week. Like, oh, on Monday, tell me about this. Well, we're going to give you the update on Tuesday. So on Monday, or whenever we get that contract, I call that listing agent. Here's what to expect from us next. Thank you for accepting our offer. I know you had multiples. What stood out about our offer? I always ask that. You have a guarantee. I know your name. Let me ask you this. Were we the highest? Because that helps in my stats. So in general, we usually had at least 40% of our clients were not the highest offers. They were just the best put together offers, or our guarantee, or the fact that we could close faster, whatever it was. But that's really important, because when I'm going to realtors, when I'm going to clients, I'm now an asset to have them maybe not spend top dollar. Yeah. So ask some of those questions. But I tell them exactly what to expect. Hey, every Tuesday, we're going to do a quick email update and a phone call, just letting you know how the file's going through our system. We're going to let you know as soon as the appraisal's ordered, as soon as it's in, loans fully approved, docs for the title. Do you have any questions for me? Any concerns about the property or the timeline of which we're going to get this done? Because if the seller's traveling, or we got repairs, I'm concerned that we won't get that done. Let's talk about escrow up front, whatever it is. Who else do I need to be updating? It's my biggest pet peeve where there's a transaction coordinator and they don't tell me. And then like every other week, it's like, oh, tell me about what's going on. No. So I do that. Then I probably call when the appraisal comes in. Hey, great news. It's in. We're good. Hey, loans all set to go. Now, 3 days prior to closing, 2 days prior to closing, I make that call to that listing agent. And I say, hey, it's Lisa over at Craft Country. And they're like, what? They hesitate every single time. It's so funny. And so I say, oh my gosh, I love your response. You're thinking that I'm going to call you and say that I got a delay or something screwed up. No, I'm calling you to say everything's on track. Our money's going to go out the day before. Our package is going to go out the day before. I know that a seller stresses to the end moment of a transaction. And I'm telling you at this point, we're all good.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my gosh, this was great. This was amazing. That when I hear those words, I say, is this not something that you're accustomed to receiving? Or are you not accustomed to getting this kind of communication or this kind of process? Sometimes they'll say, most of the time they say no. And then I will say, well, I would love the opportunity to chat with you more about what we do and how we do it. And if you're open to it, let's set something up. Because as this process has gone through, I hope you felt that we gave you peace of mind. We saved you time because you weren't calling us, we weren't doing anything, and that we really were on top of it the whole process. And that's really what we do for our agents.
So good.
And then I try to set that appointment. And it probably works about 60% of the time. And if not, no problem, we'll stay connected. Because then what am I going to do? Probably a month later, I'm going to use that hook. Hey, I know we closed on this. Would this be a benefit? Would this be a benefit?
Yeah, because you don't know what pain they might have experienced in the meantime. Maybe that wasn't a pain during your transaction, but then you bring that smooth closing, that feeling of, oh my God, she's calling me 3 days before closing. And then it was good news instead of bad news. But I think that's so strategic and it's so genius. And there's no surprise why you're one of the best in the industry. So I think that was probably the 100th nugget that you as a loan officer could have got from this call, but strategically calling listing agents. So go back, listen to that a couple of different times. But the idea around that is knowing that a listing agent may not meet you for coffee. You may not close them for coffee, but the follow-up, I wrote it down 4 times, follow up with exclamation points. If I could look back on my career, and my wife has even told me this before, she goes, you're really good at meeting people, but you suck at keeping the fish on the hook. And I was like, I know, it's the follow-up. So any of you younger loan officers, anyone that just needs a refresher like me, follow-up. I forget, Todd Duncan once said it, the fortune's in the follow-up. And it's so true. And Lisa just reiterated that. All right. So in the last 2 minutes, you want to put a bow on this amazing call. You delivered so much value today, Lisa. Thank you.
No, I think, at this time, this is a challenging time for me too, for sure. But I think that the biggest thing, stay consistent, regardless of how you feel, regardless of, if you feel like making the call, you got to do it. Stay consistent with, the video, the content, anything that you can push out to be of value or talking points to your agents. And don't be discouraged if you get no's or they don't meet with you, because it just might not be your time. There have been agents that have said no to me 7 times years ago, and all of a sudden something happens and now we're starting to work together. So this is a game of, it's a long game. It's not a sprint. What is that? A marathon, a sprint type thing. So I just think keep it all in perspective, but make yourself memorable and say something that matters and then be consistent with it.
Yeah. And I think that should have been the name of today's call, how Lisa Wells has leveraged consistency to win as a top producer. Because as I go back and I review this call, the Monday calls, the lunch and learns, the videos, it's deliberate and consistent. And then the follow-up, it's consistent. And it's understanding that, yeah, we are in a tough market. Define your tough, whatever it might be. But you know what? Good things come out of hard work and tough times. So stay consistent. I absolutely love that. I think you crushed it. I told Dave Savage that you were going to hit an absolute home run, or in your world, a windmill slam dunk. But you're awesome, Lisa. Thank you so much for giving us an hour of your time today. And I'm sure we're going to have to get back to some questions. So jump into the Mortgage Coach community and reply back to some of these questions maybe later on when you have some spare time. But thank you so much for your time today, Lisa.
Thank you, Dan.
With that, you guys, that's a wrap. We'll talk to you soon.